Well, get ready. I'm going to break out into song deep in the heart of Texas. Well, yes, we got to cruise out of the Port of Galveston. I know, singing. You're turning off already, I can tell. And the Port of Galveston, a little bit different. We're going to tell you everything you need to know about Disney cruising out of Galveston. That's today on the DIS Unlimited's DCL Show. Hello and welcome back to the DIS Unlimited's DCL Show. That's all the singing I'm going to do, promise. Hi there, I'm Chris Forbeck, one of the agents with Dreams Unlimited Travel. Thanks so much for joining us. Yes, I got to cruise out of Galveston, Texas on the Disney Magic. Ooh, Disney Magic was really lovely, I got to tell you. And I got to check off a whole bunch of firsts off my list. It was the first time I was at Progresso, and we have an overview of that in our trip report. It was the first time I got to experience Marvel Day at Sea, and we did an entire podcast about that experience. Spoiler alert. It's awesome. It was so fun. And yes, even if you aren't a Marvel fanatic. And it was my first time doing a back-to-back cruise. And yes, it was the first time I got to cruise out of Galveston, Texas. And it is a very different place. And we've been doing, this is the latest in our series of profiles of the different departure ports that Disney Cruise Line uses. We profiled Port Canaveral. You can find that, dclshow.com/Port Canaveral Guide. We've done Fort Lauderdale, dclshow.com/Fort Lauderdale. And we've done Vancouver, dclshow.com/Vancouver. So you can find all those. We're going to do San Diego coming up. And, well, I'll introduce him in a second, but Jimmy's going to Singapore. So we're going to talk to Jimmy, and I'll do it in June. So probably later on in the summer, we'll talk about Singapore as well. Kind of cool. But Galveston, adorable. Breaking news, this is not Florida. It is different, and there are some things that we're going to go through, some of those differences. Some of them may be unexpected. We're going to tell you everything you need to know for cruising out of Galveston, and there's a lot to cover, so let me do introductions. Of course, joining me, my friend and colleague, Dreams Unlimited travel agent, Elaine Edwards. Hello, Elaine.
Hi, friends.
And of course, we have our...
Howdy.
Are you going to sing with me? Are you going to sing with me? Do a Galveston song?
If I had a cowboy hat, I would have wore it.
They sold well, I'll talk about this in a minute. They have a place that you could have bought. I could have bought boots, but I'm not sure I'm a boots kind of guy. So and of course we have our amazing producer Jimmy Valdez. Always great to have you here, Jimmy. Hello.
Hi.
Are you excited for your trip?
Of course I am. I can't wait. I can't sleep. I've been trying to sleep.
I'm excited for your trip, so I can only imagine what you're like. So Elaine and I were talking about, Elaine hasn't cruised out of Galveston before, so she's going to pepper me with all those questions about things that I forgot to talk about. So but it's fun. So we're going to talk all about Galveston, its port, where to stay, how to get there, all those kinds of things. But first, I want to remind you that this show, along with everything we do at the DIS Unlimited, DCL Fan, UO Fan, it's all brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel. We are experts at helping you plan that magical Disney cruise, a visit to an amazing Disney theme park, your Universal adventure, yes, even other cruise lines. There's no additional cost to book with Dreams Unlimited Travel, none. But we're going to give you insights about your Disney cruise, let you know about the ship, let you know about your port. We're going to help you find those perfect moments in that magical Disney theme park. And of course, that amazing Universal adventure. This is literally what we do. And by booking your cruise with Dreams Unlimited Travel, you get a shipboard credit of up to $1,000, depending on the price of your cruise. And I always hear people say, what? Nothing's for free. Free money to spend on board. Doesn't cost you a dime. Not a bad deal. Best way to get started, dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. And I always mention, by way of transparency, Elaine, we are both Dreams Unlimited Travel agents. Yes, this is our job, but I'll tell you a secret. You want to know why we do this? Oh, we love this stuff. Disney, Universal. And yes, we love Disney Cruise Line. And we absolutely want you to have the best time possible. Yeah, I hear all the podcasts and I read the stuff out there. Oh, they're just travel agents. They're not saying this specifically about us, about all of us travel agents. And well, thank you very much for that. We actually love what we do. I'm going to tell you, we're going to be very upfront with you. We're not going to be dishonest with you. But we absolutely do have a bias. We love this stuff. We love Disney parks. We love Universal. And we just adore Disney Cruise Line. We have done hosted Disney Cruise Line, where Disney Cruise Line hosts us, and we always tell you that. But most of my trips, I paid for them out of my own pocket. So we're Disney fans, and Disney fans know they care about this stuff just so much. So I always quote Roz from Monsters Inc. We're watching. We're always watching, right? We're going to tell you when things change and whether that change is good and how it's going to impact your trip. We're always going to be honest with you. That's our job here on this podcast. And frankly, as travel agents, provide you with information so you can make the best decision for you and your family. We hope you book with dreams. I think it allows us to do this podcast. And it also, it's our job. We love doing it. But if you don't, we still hope you have an amazing trip. We're going to dive right into Galveston, Elaine. And Galveston, great port. There are a bunch of things you need to know, and we're going to talk about some of the logistics. But before we do that, it's interesting because Disney's kind of dipped into Galveston a couple of times, and now they seem to be really making a push. I will tell you, on our cruise, a lot of people, both from Texas and the whole Midwest area, and I'm guessing that's what Disney is trying to tap into, is that whole market. People who don't want to have to trek to Florida. Are there any advantages to cruising out of Galveston?
I would say definitely if you are local to them, because, people that live in Florida, one of the things that they love about cruising is they can just
Right.
hop on a cruise with a lot shorter notice. That they'll be like, hey, let's a good deal in a couple of weeks. Let's just jump on one of these 3-day weekend cruises, that kind of thing. And this makes things, and we're all jealous of those people that don't live, all of us that don't live in Florida, we're very jealous of them, of course. And so something like this makes it more accessible and easier for people that live in Texas to be able to do that. And I have friends that live in Texas, and they've done that, where they have booked Galveston cruises, 3 weeks out. I've seen a lot of my clients that are booking Galveston cruises a lot shorter lead time rather than that, year and a half in advance, like they're
Right.
doing out of Port Canaveral. A lot of times they can actually be a lot less expensive as well, because you're not going out of that major port. So I think in a lot of ways it makes it a lot more accessible to a lot of people.
And right now, basically, the Disney Magic is doing. Disney has already announced in 2027 there are going to be Marvel Day at Seas on the Disney Magic. If you want to do a Marvel Day at Sea, it's the only place you're going to be able to do it is out of the ports of Galveston. And we've talked on and off about this. In fact, I think we did it when we were talking about summer 2027 itineraries. But right now, the Disney Magic is the only ship going out of there. But I think we both keep hearing that maybe another ship, whether the Dream comes over or maybe the Wish even comes over, Galveston is very focused on that. And in fact, officials in Galveston have said, hey, we're getting a bigger ship. So we're kind of watching that, and it'll be interesting to see what it does for people cruising out of Galveston, out of the Port of Galveston, if there's another ship other than the Magic and the Wonder.
Maybe it'll be this new ship that, what is the class called that it's going to be, but it's going to be a smaller one.
The Meridian, yes, the Meridian class, yeah.
Maybe that's where they're going to take that one.
Yeah, it could be. We're watching, and we'll certainly let you know. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of Galveston so you have an idea of what we're talking about. Galveston is a barrier island located on the Texas coast. It's and nestled, sits right up against the Gulf of Mexico. So not that big. Galveston Island is about 27 miles long. It's about 3 miles wide. The city has a population of about 55,000 people. It's 50 miles from Houston, and we'll talk about how you get to Galveston in a couple moments. But just to orient you, the port is on the harbor side of the island. This is the side opposite from the Gulf. And it's in a canal that runs on essentially the north side of the island. The other side of the island is on a seawall. There's a seawall that faces the Gulf of Mexico, and at least when I was there, and from everything that I've seen and heard, people call it the seawall side of the island. So, and there's a beach there, and you can do all that kind of stuff. And we're actually going to tell you some things that you can do in Galveston when you're there. I always like giving you a little, and I was looking it up for myself, a little bit of history. So, Elaine, Galveston, or Galvez Town, as it was named in the 18th century, was named after this Spanish military and political leader, Bernardo de Galvez, first Count of Galvez. No idea what any of that means. And I started to do research, and I said, oh my goodness, I'm getting deep into the weeds here. But there you go. The first European settlement on Galveston Island were built around early 1800s by a French pirate, actually. And the first Mexican Empire was fighting independence from Spain, and so all sorts of stuff going on. The Port of Galveston was established in 1825 by the Congress of Mexico following its independence. The city was the main port for this Texas Navy during the Texas Revolution in 1836, and later served as temporarily the new national capital for the Republic of Texas. I always forget about, I don't know nearly enough about that part of history. I need to read more about it. One particular point of historical measure that comes from Galveston, in 1865, General Gordon Granger arrived, and he announced to some of the last enslaved African Americans that slavery was no longer legal. And this event, you may have heard of Juneteenth. This is annually, that's what it's based on. Juneteenth comes from that moment. So a little moment of Galveston history. During the 19th century, Galveston became actually a major commercial center. It was one of the largest ports in the United States, and for a while, it was known as the Queen City of the Gulf. And then 1900 came, and there was this ginormous hurricane. In fact, it still measures as one of the largest natural disasters ever, one of the deadliest. And this is so weird to me. 6,000 to 12,000 people died. That's a big range, but it was an enormous hurricane which nearly wiped the town out. In Prohibition, the city reemerged, and it was you could do illegal gambling and maybe get a drink or two there. It was nicknamed the Free State of Galveston until the 1950s, and now it's largely a tourist. There's some healthcare there. It has a big hospital, so a bunch of stuff there. It is the 12th busiest port in the world, with about 3.4 million passengers in 2024. Just by way of comparison, Port Canaveral, which is battling with the Port of Miami as the number one, they have almost 9 million passengers a year. So just to give you an idea. The port itself, as I said, it's located in the harbor area, and we're going to talk in more detail about this because there's a hotel that's right there that's nice to stay in. But it is on the opposite side of the Gulf side. So they kind of go through this harbor, enter the Gulf of Galveston before entering the Gulf of Mexico. So that gives you kind of some idea of what we're talking about. Pre-cruise. So Elaine, let's talk a little bit about how you get there. There are 3 ways that you're going to, well, basically two. You're going to drive or you're going to fly. This is purely anecdotal, and when I say this, Texas, anybody from Texas, this is not meant as an insult. It's meant as it's so different from me. Elaine, Texas people are crazy. And I mean that in the most loving sense of the word. They look at a 6-hour drive and they say, sure, no problem. A 6-hour drive to me is like, I barely do 6-hour flights. So there were people on our cruises who did 6, 7, 8-hour drives to get to the Port of Galveston and did not think twice about it. And for me, that's like, oh my God, I need medication to do that.
I'm honestly I am surprised about the number, just the cruises that are going out of Florida, as well as obviously Disney World, Universal, that kind of thing. Our clients coming from Texas is a large number of clients in Texas, and a lot of them will drive. They will drive all the way to Florida. So it is, that's a Texas thing, I guess. So
yeah, they just think about it differently. It was really interesting because it was almost uniform amongst the folks that I'm going to get all sorts of comments about this, but oh well. It was really interesting and just so different from me. I mean, so different from me. I need medication to do it. We during COVID, we drove up to Boston, and the amount of time that it takes to drive from DC to Boston is crazy, and it's like so stressful, and I don't enjoy it. But anyway, if you fly into Houston. There are 2 airports. We'll talk about that in a moment. And the challenge here is getting from Houston to Galveston, but we're going to go through all that let's do it right now. As I mentioned, 2 airports. One is the George Bush Intercontinental Airport. It's called IAH, or its call signs, or you can fly into Houston Hobby. But I'm going to start with the George Bush Intercontinental Airport, because this is the only airport where you can get Disney Cruise Line transportation to the port on the day of your cruise. It's actually located farther away from the port. It's about 70 miles. If it's good, if everything goes smoothly, it's about 75-minute drive, usually 90, sometimes longer. It largely depends on traffic. The George Bush Intercontinental Airport is the bigger of the 2 airports, and most airlines fly into the George Bush Airport, IAH. You can stay at the airport if you come in the day before. And at the end of this, I'm going to do my pro tips for this. I know we say it all the time. For me, this is particularly true around Galveston, is come in the day, or don't try and do day of, because it's just, there's too many moving pieces. But sorry, I'm previewing the end. If you fly in the day before, you can stay and you can book it as part of your Disney Cruise Line reservation at the Airport Marriott. It's called the Houston Airport Marriott at George Bush Intercontinental. And Disney has a room block, or you can do it yourself, and you can get Disney Cruise Line straight from the Marriott or from the airport. It's a fine hotel. It's an airport hotel. It's nothing particularly outstanding or anything, but it's perfectly fine. And it's weird, Elaine, I thought actually you would enjoy this, and Jimmy, I think I'll make sure Jimmy has a photo so he can plop it in here. But the hotel looks a little bit like something out of Men in Black. It has this weird circle thing that looks like a flying saucer, like landed. And apparently it used to be a restaurant that did the revolving thing, but it's not in use anymore. And I think we've joked about, I have this rule about food: the better the view, the worse the food. And if something rotates, all bets are off, because God only knows what you're going to get. But it's just the strangest looking thing. And so they have a separate building where it was one of these, we were pulling our bags over, and we were in the second wing, and you have to take an escalator down, and on the escalator at an airport hotel, it says no heavy bags. And I was like, what in the world is this? We took our bags down. It was fine. I don't know whether they're talking about like larger things than luggage, but they do have a nice restaurant in there. It's right in the lobby, and it's a fine place to eat. Houston Airport, the IAH, is a big airport, and they do have a little tram that will take you around to the different terminals. So that's, and one of the stops is at the Marriott. The other part about it being big is, if you want to stay off property, it's not like if you're in Orlando Airport, MCO, like there are a bunch of hotels that are 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes, so you can almost see them from the terminals. This is not they have a big space. And so the other airports are not as close. And so it's a little bit more of a thing to do that. You can totally do it, but just be aware of that. As I mentioned, this is the only place you can get Disney Cruise Line ground transportation. And what I paid was $45 per person per leg. So $90 round trip, which is the same as it is in Orlando. So there you go. And I always like telling you what we did and why we did it when we did this trip. So we stayed at the Marriott because I wanted to be able to talk about it. And we took Disney Cruise Line transportation. I will let you know, and I think I mentioned it on our trip report. they had messed up somehow the transportation, so we had to take all our bags and go over to the main airport and take that bus down. They didn't have us going straight from the Marriott. It was fine in the grand scope of things. If that's the worst thing that happened in my day, I was doing perfectly okay. But just be aware that can happen. As I say, it's not a huge deal, but just be prepared. And we didn't find that out until the morning of. So my initial concern was that they didn't have my transportation at all. I was going to have to quickly figure out how I was going to get down to one of the advantages. And I think, Elaine, this is something that we often share with folks is, so there can be issues with driving down there. If you take Disney Cruise Line transportation down there, you're not going to miss the boat. And that's for me, that's a real thing that I don't want to miss a ship going. And so it was really important for me to do that because it is a trek, and the amount of time to get down there, it can be a while. And I've had situations, I think I mentioned to you before, when we were sailing out of Dover, England, and the bus never showed up, and then they got a bus, but we had to stop. And so we were late. We were quite late getting on the ship, and they held the ship for us, and they do that because we were on the Disney Cruise Line bus. So it's just something to keep aware of in those situations. Have you ever had clients who had to deal with that before?
Well, that was going to be my question, is what sort of mode of transportation were you on? Because I know I have had a few clients, and it has been a while. This is back when they were just kind of starting to roll out of Galveston, that especially going from the ship back to the airport, they were put in vans instead of motor coaches. And because, these are not Disney Cruise Line employees. This is not the Magical Express. This is third-party companies that they are contracting with. And they just kind of felt like, this is just, I don't know, they just kind of got weird, sketchy feelings about it. But like I said, this is when they were first starting. And so that's why I kind of wondered what the actual mode of transportation and how that went for you specifically.
It's an awesome question. So it was a bus, I would say very similar to the one that you take if you cruised out of Port Canaveral. It even had TV screens, and one of the people on the bus asked, "Hey, can we put something on the screen so the kids can have something to watch?" And he said, no, we couldn't. So it very similar, big bus, in fact, going both directions because we took transportation back to the airport. So it was no sketchiness. It was, we were there early, so it was all fine. I'll talk about one of the interesting, I'll do it now. So the Disney Cruise Line, the ship, the Disney Magic, got into port that day 3 hours late. Almost 3 hours late, 2.5, 3 hours late, because of weather that was going on. There were big winds, and they closed the pools and everything on the ship. It was, and from what I was talking to the crew and folks, they said it was really, really choppy getting in. So it was in almost 3 hours, and I'm going to talk more about this in embarkation. But there were people getting off the ship literally as we were arriving to get on. Normally that doesn't happen. It was clunky. Disney dealt with it in a lovely way. It was the first time, and maybe I'm the only geek who would notice this, but it was the first time I ever entered a Disney ship on the port side of the ship rather than the starboard side. Normally you come in and the statue is facing you and everything. You got to come in and see the backside of the statue in the grand hall. So it was just different. Perfectly fine, but just different. And because they had to, the way they got in, it was, but very interesting and made for a little bit delayed. But if you booked a flight that was leaving, if you were on that flight that got in 3 hours late and you expected to be off the ship at 7:00, and Houston and Galveston has a little bit of a reputation of sometimes they have fog issues. So just on your return flight, when you're leaving, I'd leave yourself a little extra time if you're doing a flight, just because that is not a totally unusual occurrence. So The other airport that you can fly out of that goes into Houston is the William Hobby Airport, William P. Hobby Airport. I should have looked up who William P. Hobby is, but there you go. Its call letters, its code is HOU. This is located much closer to Galveston. It's about 42 miles. It's about an hour to 60 to 90 minutes, depending on traffic. If you're flying in on Southwest, this is the Southwest Airport. This is it's smaller, it's more manageable. But again, Hobby does not have Disney Cruise Line transportation. There is not really an on-site hotel. There are hotels nearby, but it's just a different experience. And you might want to fly in here, and we can discuss some of how you get there. Driving, as I mentioned, a lot of people driving. There is a lot of parking nearby, and there are a number of options. The Port of Galveston has parking. One thing you may want to do is pre-purchase your parking, and I've created a link, a redirect to take you there, dclshow.com, /Port of Galveston parking. And that will take you to that page, and you can actually see how much it is. I think they give you a little bit of a discount if you do it. There's also a covered lot building. It's called port parking. That's nearby if you want to keep your car under a cover. So that's also walkable as well. But do think about parking, and a lot of the places do. You can book it ahead of time. So transportation options. There's no public transportation to get from, so there's no trains or anything that go down to Galveston. You can take the DCL transportation from George Bush. There are shuttles that you can find you can do rideshare. And there are a host of car services that do this because a lot of people doing it. The Port of Galveston has a list of car services on their website. So just go to the Port of Galveston website and go to the cruise section, and you can find it. One that I've often recommended and I use myself is a service called Black Lane. They work with a whole bunch of car services, and they vet those services. It's a little bit more expensive than a lot of other car services, but as I said, it's vetted and they're extremely professional. And I always tell people everyone's definition of value is different. For me, that level of reliability and professionalism, that I chalk that up as a good value. So Black Lane, you can find them blacklane.com, and they're.
And I 1000% second Black Lane, because anytime, we go down to Disney a lot just because that's our job and what we do. And so usually I'm taking Uber or whatever. However, typically when I'm going home, a lot of times I'll have 6 a.m. flights. And, I don't trust being able to get an Uber at 3:30 in the morning to go to the airport. So I always schedule Black Lane for that. And they are, every single time, they are early. They're texting me, they're letting me know, and I'm like, "Oh, you're early." And they're like, "It's fine, take your time." I mean, they are so cordial, so nice, so above and beyond. The cars are the nicest cars I've ever seen. As far as I've done other like limo service and black car service, these are way nicer than those. I mean, they usually have water and Wi-Fi in the cars. If you're coming from the airport, they will get all of your luggage for you. They'll put it all in the car. So 1000% Black Lane, and they're available in tons of major cities around the world.
If you drive down, Elaine, have you heard of Buc-ee's?
Yes. Well, I went to my very first Buc-ee's like 3 months ago when we were driving down to Pensacola. And like you, I was thinking about this when you were saying that you don't like driving. When my boyfriend said he wanted to go to Pensacola, and he said, "We're going to drive." And I looked up how far away, and it was 9.5 hours. I said, that is almost a breaking point for me because I do not like to drive. So, yes, I did my very first Buc-ee's in Alabama.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Buc-ee's. This is I'm going to say it's a gas station, but that doesn't capture anything close to it. We did not make the stop. I wish I had. But there is a Buc-ee's on the way. It's in a place called Texas City. Who knew there was a place? Look at all the things I learned. And it is right on the way. Oftentimes, if you ask your folks, they will stop, and they have foods. You can get foods. Just if you're taking it on the ship, make sure it's wrapped. and not just in a bag or something like that. You can't do that, but you can take that. Apparently they have the nicest bathrooms on the planet, like bathrooms. They're like bathrooms on Disney ships where they're like so clean, like, oh my goodness, no one's used this, those kinds of things. So apparently it's
they've got like the green and red lights, so you know if it's like actually available.
Yeah, it's like, and apparently the one that's in Texas City has 150 pumps for. I was like, it blew my mind. Just all of it blew my mind. So there you go. That was in my pro tips, but I'll save it. I'll do it now. Let's talk. If you want to go to Galveston, so a couple of things. If you're driving, one thing is you can get like near Buc-ee's. There's a hotel. If you want to stay someplace like around there, you can certainly absolutely do that. And that's one of the things. If you want to go all the way to Galveston when you fly in, so Disney Cruise Line has room blocks at 2 hotels. One is called the San Luis Resort Spa and Conference Center. Both of these are in Galveston. As I mentioned, Galveston is not that big. So you're maybe, it's not quite spitting distance to the port, but, if you're a really good spitter, and then we need to talk. But if you're really, you can, it's not far at all. You're not going to have any problems. So one is the St. Louis Resort Spa and Conference Center. The other one is the Hilton Galveston Island Resort. Both nice. They're on the beach side. So if you want to see the beach and be near the beach or go to the beach, those are available to you. And as I say, they're a short distance to the port. 2 other options that are not Disney Cruise Line options. Well, 3 others. Sorry. One is the Harbor House. This sits literally right on the harbor that all the ships come down. And it is an adorable little place. And they have these rooms, and they have almost like, I want to call them cabins, but they're bigger than that and have multiple rooms in them. But it's an adorable little place. They have a great restaurant in there, apparently. We did not get down there, but it's a little bit more on the pricey side. But it's, and you can literally crawl out. All you spitters, you can spit and reach the port, and you will see the ships coming in the morning if you get up early. All those kinds of things. It's certainly a nice option. This does book up early because it's popular with cruisers, so just be aware. The another one is called the Tremont House. This is another favorite, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what's called the Strand District in Galveston. Well, I'll do it now. Strand is this a lovely area of shops and historic. It feels a little bit. Well, I think Chloe mentioned it in our like cruise discussion, our trip report. That feels a little bit like you're at Port Orleans, River, not Riverside, Port Orleans, whichever that one, the New Orleans one. Has that kind of feel to it. Really fun shops, local shops. It has this southern charm and stuff, and the hotel is right there. Again, walkable to the port. It's right there in the Strand. Great place. They have food. It's so think tall ceilings. It has these great polished wood floors, great rooms, stylish rooms with the modern amenities. It has this amazing rooftop bar with, you can see the harbor right there. It has on-site dining. You can get to museums. You can get to the cruise terminal. A really highly comes with a lot of recommendations. I did not stay there, but it gets a lot of recommendations, and everything that I saw, people really like it. The last one that I wanted to mention is the Grand Galvez Resort. This is another historic luxury hotel. So it's again on the pricey side. It's on the Gulf side, so it has those Gulf views. It has this amazing Mediterranean architecture that looks just gorgeous. It has a spa. It has an outdoor pool. Another lovely place to stay. So, and I should, I'll mention this later. The Rainforest Cafe is right near one of the Hilton, the Disney books. So the Rainforest Cafe in Galveston has a water ride inside. So if you're doing that, any questions about hotels? Anything you've heard as folks? Galveston is a fun place to spend time, and we walked around. So we did, as I mentioned, we did back-to-backs, and we used that back-to-back day as a port day in Galveston. So we walked around in the Strand. We went down. I'm going to talk about things you can do next, but there's we use that as a day to explore Galveston. So it's a fun city. It's a fun place to spend some time. So
That's super interesting that you left the port during your back-to-back day, because so many people will wait on the ship as long as possible, and then if you're a back-to-back sailor, you get to be the very first ones to get on the ship as soon as it's gone through its turnover. And so it is cool, especially when you're in a different city like that, taking the time to leave the port and go exploring. I mean, that's a great idea.
Well, and what was lovely was, as we were as we were the last people off the Disney Magic, and we were telling people who at the port, they all live or in or near Galveston, and they were saying, and we were saying, yeah, we're going to go explore the city. And again, to every single thank you for doing that. That's so awesome. We have a great city. They were all proud about where they lived, and it was great. They were really excited that we were going to check out their city. So maybe I'll use that as a good opportunity to talk about things you can do in Galveston. So I mentioned the Strand. This is feels very historic, and is a lovely place to spend some time, walk around. There is a Galveston Island Historic Pleasure Pier. There's a roller coaster out there. There's a big Ferris wheel. There is a bunch of rides out there. Just FYI, to even go out on the pier, you have to pay before you even get on the ride. You have to pay to even go out on the pier. So and the pier has been there for a long time. So it's actually, sometimes people call it historic, and like, okay, I don't know what history, but there you go. It's been there for a while, and it actually has some history to it. So another thing that's interesting is there's something called the Moody Gardens, and this is they have an aquarium, they have a rainforest exhibit, they have one of those big 3D theaters. It's a great place for families if you're looking for a little bit of education and to learn about some of the Gulf, what it's like in the Gulf and all those kinds of things. It's and they have these big pyramids. It looked really cool. Again, we didn't have time to do it, but there you go. If you're outdoorsy, there's the Galveston Island State Park, which is a place where you can go and hike around and see birds and wildlife and all sorts of stuff. So that was fun. The other one, and Chloe mentioned the Rainforest Cafe. This has a dark water ride right inside it. It's the only. Chloe said, I'm quoting Chloe. So I think it's the only one in the world that has a dark ride right inside of it. A couple other things to do. If you want to go, you can do dolphin. There are all sorts of dolphins both in the harbor, and you can go and do a dolphin tour. I was talking to a gentleman on board who lived in Galveston, and he did one of the things we talked about late, where he said, booked a cruise. I think he booked it 10 days before. And he says, we want to do a cruise. So they jumped on the cruise and did it. I was very jealous. But he said there's a ferry that is it's a car ferry, and you can take the car ferry for free. And you can see the dolphins and all that kind of stuff. So if you have a little time, just do it and then come right back, and you can see dolphins in the harbor and get a different view of Galveston. There was one other thing that I was going to mention, but it isn't in my notes, and I forgot about it. So hotels. All right, let's talk about a couple of things that were, and I'm going to go through a bunch of pro tips. One is plan your travel. Again, I mentioned earlier, Galveston, notorious for fog. There can be weather. And in fact, I'm going to give Jimmy even on our trip, on our first leg of our trip, as we were coming into Galveston, the water was pretty windy, and the water was I have a video of the pool, the adult pool, and the water is sloshing. And it was pretty impressive, and I'm not sure you would want to be in the pool at that time. They closed the family pool. So just be aware. And I mentioned the Magic was 3 hours late coming in, so you want to be aware of those things and just give yourself a little bit of leeway. We always mention it, and in fact, I think we need to create a little bing that goes off when we mention this. Please don't arrive on the day of your cruise. Please, please, please. Particularly in Galveston, it seems more complex because there's just traffic and there's too many factors involved, and who needs that kind of stress? So there are ways to deal with it, and if you work with Dreams, we can help you with that and plan. But just be aware. I mentioned the harbor side and that's what they actually call it, the harbor side area. It can get busy and crowded when there are multiple ships in. And so Royal has built its own port there in Galveston, built its own terminal there in Galveston. It is bringing those big ships that have thousands of people on board into Galveston. So you can have a lot of people and traffic. And so again, breathe deep. And just follow. It's well marked. You can see the ship, so it's not. You can see where the Disney ship is and where you need to go. I would still, even if I'm parking, I would probably go drop off my bags. All the porters are wearing these Hawaiian shirts, so just look for one of them, hand off your bags, and then go park. But there may be some traffic and a lot of people, so just be aware of that. So here was the thing that I did not know about this, but Texas liquor laws. So Texas is unique. So if you're cruising out of Galveston, there are liquor laws. And for other ships that have cruise packages, that have drink packages, sometimes those drink packages don't start until they're out of Texas waters. They reach international waters about 12 miles out. So they don't none of that, because you have to pay. Texas requires you use Texas liquor that pays Texas taxes for ships on board.
Wow.
Who knew? Yeah,
Who knew?
I'd never heard of that. So I like to have a cocktail when I get on board and like to have either a glass of wine or something. So we went and bought a bottle of wine and you're allowed to take 2 bottles of wine per 21-year-old person on board. So I brought a bottle of wine because I didn't want to have to wait until maybe 8:00 until I got my first drink. And it ended up, at least for our cruises, it wasn't an issue. Disney must do something where that wasn't an issue. One thing that would be an issue is if you're going to Cozumel, Progresso, someplace like that, and you purchase alcohol or tobacco in like a duty-free or a foreign port, something like that, you are going to have to pay Texas state tax when you come back. Now, Disney has a QR code where you can just do it and you can pay it ahead of time. So it's all done and over with, but just be aware that is one of the things you're going to have to do when you come back. So duty-free plus Texas tax. So just, again, something that I didn't know anything about, but I wanted to bring it to your attention so you're prepared and don't have to and don't get taken off. As it did not impact our cruise, so Disney maybe has a whole fleet of liquor that they only use on that first day or something like that. But just be aware. Let's see. Am I missing anything? I mentioned weather. Oh, one other thing. Sorry. Yes, and then I'll let you go. I wanted to mention weather because sometimes leaving out of Galveston, it was a couple days that it was chilly. I was wearing long pants and I was wearing a Spirit jersey. And I'm here in DC where it has been cold. So just be aware that it may not be the warm if you're, those days where you leave out of Port Canaveral or something and it's 90 degrees and you're baking in the sun. It may not be that experience. So just have something available and prepared. The pools were all heated. There were kids in the pools, even though I was not. But just be aware that the weather is changeable, and a lot of these cruises are take place in the winter. So just be aware of that and be prepared. Sorry, I interrupted you, Elaine. Go.
One thing to note, when we think about Disney Cruise Line and going on a Disney cruise, what do we think about with that? A lot of times is the Disney Islands, Castaway Cay, Lookout Cay. 99% of the time, if you are sailing out of Galveston, you are not going to a Disney Island. You are pretty much just going to Cozumel or Progreso. There is, every once in a while, they'll do a 7-night Bahamian. It will stop one day at Nassau and one day at Castaway Cay, and you will have 4 days at sea.
Yeah.
So, just saying, if when you picture yourself going on a Disney cruise sitting on Castaway Cay, and this is the one cruise, bucket list that you're ever going to take, would not do it out of Galveston. So
it's a great point, and yeah, be sure and look at where you're going to make sure. And we did in the trip report, we talked both about Cozumel and we discussed Progreso in terms of what to be prepared for in terms of excursions and what they are. So a bunch of opportunities there. And also I should on the Cozumel stop, Chloe got to visit this new kind of beach resort kind of thing that they're building up. And she now has a story on DCL Fan all about it. So if you want more information about that, you can find more information about that on dclfan.com. All right. We've covered a lot. Anything else any other questions that I should have talked about that I forgot to add to our list, Elaine?
I don't think so. I think that was, we've covered a lot. So
yeah, a lot of information in there. I should note, I'm creating, I've done it for Fort Lauderdale. I'm going to do it for Galveston too. That kind of pulls all this information together. If you want that, just send me a note, let me know, and I'll send it out to you, and share it. So I do it for my own brain purposes. Cause like I know I talked about it, where is it? I put it all together in one place. So if you want that, just shoot me a note and we can easily get that done. Giving you an idea of what we have coming up, we're going to be talking about that amazing Disney adventure. It is arriving in Singapore soon. So, and in fact, I saw that they're going to be doing some pre-departure fireworks shows in the area where the port area in Singapore. So very exciting. It's becoming real, very fun. And Jimmy and Federico are going on that. We're going to both talk to them about them planning this trip, and we'll talk to them when they get back. So, and I mentioned I'm on the Disney Wonder cruising out of San Diego next month in March, and so I've never cruised out of San Diego, so we're going to do this for San Diego. Coming up soon. So stay tuned. Anything we should cover, let us know. dclshow.com/message. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. So if this was helpful at all, you can help us. If you learned anything today, this is literally what we do. Best way to help us is booking with Dreams Unlimited Travel, but you can leave us a message on Apple, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That's so helpful. If you're having a bad experience, reach out to me instead and let's get that fixed, or let me know what I can do differently. But we'd love to get a good rating from you. On YouTube, like, subscribe, thumbs up, all those kinds of things. I know it seems so simple, but it really is so helpful. Best way you can help us, of course, we'd love to have you book with Dreams Unlimited Travel. It literally helps pay for what we're doing right now. So, and I always tell folks, I was a Dreams client before I was a Dreams agent. So I found it enough value that I really, I love to working with Dreams. So best place to get started, dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. If you select Disney Cruise, the first page will ask you for your itinerary. You can select that and then a date. If you're looking at multiple ones, there'll be a spot where you can put multiple dates, and we're happy to look at those and compare and contrast and all those kinds of things. So that's the best way. On the third page, I guess it is, there's a whole pull down menu of all the Dreams agents, all of them. You can select one, select Elaine, select Federico, select all of, they're all awesome. I mean, I cannot talk highly enough about them. They're the Dreams team, for goodness sakes. But Elaine, if folks want to get in touch with you directly to ask you something else, how do they do that?
My email is Elaine, ELAINE, at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com.
And if you want to reach me, it's Chris V at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Yes, there's a Chris, so I'm Chris V at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. I'm also on social media. It's Yensid Travel on most social media platforms. Yensid is Disney spelled backwards, and it's the name of the sorcerer in Fantasia's Sorcerer Apprentice. There you go. Oh, and then DCLfan.com, DCLshow.com/message if you want to send us a recorded message. I listen to those all the time. So if you have show ideas, anything you want to share, you can also do that on the DCL Fan Facebook page. A whole bunch of people talking Disney Cruise. They're awesome. And or if you want to send me an email, Chris V at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. And as always, a special thanks to our amazing producer, Jimmy Valdez. Jimmy, I didn't tell you before, but I'm starting the Jimmy Valdez fan club. So I've already bought the URL, and we're going to get that started. So.
Okay.
I'm naming myself as president. So with that, safe travels. So good to see you, and we'll see you real soon. So long. Have a great day.